What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. So I just got back from traveling, and while I was traveling, a lot of contract extensions were being signed in the NBA, and the numbers can look somewhat surprising to us, especially given that the salary cap is rising, and I don't think we've had time to properly adjust ourselves mentally as to the type of numbers that players are getting. So I thought what we could do is we could go through each of the extensions and just talk about them quick. The first one here being the San Antonio Spurs are giving Zack Collins a 2-year, $35 million extension. Now, Zack Collins is someone that I've talked about a little bit before on the channel, where I'm not the biggest Zack Collins fan. I think that's largely due to the fact that he has a long injury history. I'm not necessarily sure what the ceiling is for him. He's not like a premier athlete or anything. He's not like a premier ball handler. He's not a great rebounder. He's not a great defender. But numbers do suggest that he's like starting to improve in a lot of areas, and the Spurs feel very confident with having them be their starting center this year. As we see last year, his numbers really had an uptick, and that's why they were willing to trade Jakob Poeltl away. We see 11 points a game. We saw that on almost 2.5 threes a game. He was shooting 37%. You love that. His effective field goal percentage was good. His free throw rate is pretty solid. The assists were up to 3. The turnovers were pretty high, though. So I think what's been so intriguing about Zack Collins is his fit next to Wembanyama, right? They don't necessarily want him playing against centers in the NBA. They want him out on the perimeter. They want him guarding there, which I think is awesome. Like, he looks great out there. He adds a new layer of defense that we haven't really seen in the NBA before. And his fit next to Wembanyama so far looks great. So looking at that number then, the $35 million, that's $17.5 million a year, right? Yeah, math. That's kind of what you're getting for a starter nowadays. It still seems like a bit of an overpay, but who else are you really paying on the Spurs right now? And it's only 2 seasons. If he's going to help protect Wembanyama, then that's all that matters at the end of the day. The next player we're taking a look at is Zeke Naji with the Nuggets. He got a 4-year, $32 million contract extension. So my guess would be is that the Nuggets are kind of banking on him having some continued development, right? We saw a lot of faces from the Nuggets leave, like the Bruce Browns, the Jeff Greens, guys like that, right? And Zeke Naji provides a little bit of size, a little bit of athleticism. They think maybe he's going to be able to shoot one day. We're not completely sure. But the Nuggets only have so much money to spend at the end of the day, and so they're putting a lot into this 4-year contract with him that I believe that would make him the highest paid non-starter on this team, which seems kind of interesting to me, considering I don't know how many minutes per game he's actually going to get. I'm guessing he's probably the primary backup center at this point, but Jokic is on the court quite a bit of the time. Looking at his numbers last year, you got 5 points a game, right? 64% from the free throw line. You don't really love that. I feel like the free throw line is a large indicator of how good of a shooter you truly are at the end of the day. Effective field goal percentage is a little bit low for his position as well. The 3-point attempts were there considering the minutes that he had, but the percentage wasn't very good. He has a history of being a better 3-point shooter, and so you like to think that maybe it was just a decline last year. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this is just one of those things where it's like, look, the Nuggets only have so much money to spend at the end of the day. They just need young bodies to kind of fill out the roster. That's why you see them trading for a lot of like early second round picks or like late first round picks, so that they don't have to pay a ton of money to people to help fill out their roster, because they are committing a large amount of money to their starters, which they should. It's an elite starting lineup. And I think that if he does become a floor spacer, rebounder, and can just be athletic, things like that, I think the signing's fine. $8 million a year seems like a lot nowadays, but I guess if he's going to be your... I'm just thinking through this lineup and everything, he's probably a 7th, 8th man, something like that. And if he's going to give quality minutes, then that's probably what you're paying nowadays for a player like that. So, hey, props to him. Go get your money. Since we're going in chronological order, the next extension technically was Giannis, so let's just talk about it. So yeah, Giannis gets his 3-year, $186 million. Apparently, Damian Lillard signing was enough for him to agree to that extension, and that makes the Lillard trade, no matter what you think of it, I think it was a phenomenal trade by them. This makes it all the worth it right here. He had been making the comments all summer, right, that everybody was talking about. He was like, look, at the end of the day, I love Milwaukee, but if they're not going to be competitive, then I don't want to be there. I want to be winning championships. That's what I want to do. And, fair enough to him at the end of the day. And the Bucks said, okay, bet. Let's go get you one of the best players in the league in Damian Lillard, and one of the probably 5 best shooters of all time. And that alone was enough to convince Giannis to stay. As far as the actual number goes and everything for Giannis, I think it's what we all expect. He's debatably the best player in basketball, and so he's going to get as much money as possible. There's not a ton of negotiating that really needs to happen for this contract. It's just a matter of making him say yes, and I should say the Bucks convincing him that this is where he wants to be. And it looks like he's got it locked up now. He seems happy to be here. The Bucks are going to be a title contender every single season as long as Giannis and Lillard are there. And yeah, good for you Milwaukee fans. All right, next one we're talking about the Hawks giving Onyeka Okongwu the nice 4-year, $62 million extension. Okongwu was I believe he was the 6th overall pick a couple of years ago. Beginning of his career, he was pretty injury riddled, but that's just he was a little bit skinny coming into the league, right, and just needed to fill himself out. He's been really consistent since then, and I actually think he's been kind of a sleeper, really good player for Hawks teams that have been consistently in the playoffs. I think he's been a really big part of that team. You look at last year where I believe he was only playing around like 19, 20 minutes a game, right? He's getting you 10 points, almost a block and a half. He's getting you 7 rebounds. Like obviously Clint Capella was missing time, but again, this is in an average of about 19 and a half minutes a game. Field goal percentage, 63%. His effective field goal percentage isn't going to be much different because he's mostly just an around the rim player. But these are the kind of guys you want around Trae Young. As far as the money itself, so if he got 4 years, $64 million, that's about $15 million a year, so a little bit less than Zack Collins, but Okongwu's not actually going to start. It's going to be Capella, most likely. And, you know, that's the thing, right, is I don't remember how much longer. Oh, my God, that's crazy. You see the athleticism there, right? He's the run, jump, and dunk center that you need around Trae Young. And Clint Capella is not going to be on the team most likely for forever. Okongwu is much more on their scope or their age range that they're probably looking for to be around the Trae Youngs, the DeJounte Murrays, DeAndre Hunter, Sadiq Bey. They've got a young core there that Okongwu fits in a little bit more than Capella does, but he does a lot of the same things that Capella does. He knows his role, right? He's a rim runner, he's a defender, he's a rebounder. He's a little bit undersized at the 6'9", but obviously he's very gifted vertically, and that helps make up for a lot of that at the end of the day. But overall, they're giving him some starter money, and for all we know, he could be a starter by, hell, the end of this season. Who knows? But Clint Capella is a very, very good player, but maybe this makes Clint Capella a potential trade target for other teams so that the Hawks can go get someone maybe they need a little bit more. Next on the list, we got Josh Green from the Dallas Mavericks getting a 3-year, $41 million extension. Josh Green's one of my more favorite players in the league, and I think this is an absolute steal if you're Dallas. The 3 years, $41 million comes out to what, like $13 million? Yeah, that's kind of what like a good role player is going to go for nowadays. And you know, he's sliding into that role that like the Dorian Finney-Smith was for them last year, right? Where he's like a defender, he's another scoring option, he can shoot a little bit, but he's like 6'7", 6'8", like strong build, good defender, and statistically, he's like sneaky, really, really good. So last year, you see the game started, increased quite a bit in his third season. He had a nice third season jump. It looks like in almost every major statistical category here, he jumped up. He's getting you 9 points a game at the end of the day. And you have to remember, most of that season, there were other players on the team that were taking more shots than him. But assists are going up, rebounds are going up. You love to see this. And look at this, the 62.6% effective field goal percentage. That's elite for a guard. That's absolutely elite. 3-point percentage, 40%. You're getting a 6'8". What do they measure him at? I don't think he's 6'5". Is he 6'5" only? He looks a lot bigger out there. He looks at least 6'7", but I don't know. You guys tell me. I don't think he's my height. He seems taller than me. But at the end of the day, you're getting a strong wing that can guard a couple different positions that's shooting 40%. That's exactly what you need around Luka and Kyrie. He's going to be a great starter for them. He can play above the rim as well, which is really nice. I think it's a steal for them in that sense. I almost just want to watch this film to like compare his height at this point. Man, that was a crazy dunk right there. That's what I'm saying. That's crazy. I don't know. Doesn't he look bigger? So there's Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie's got to be like 6'6". on the court. Bertans is 6'9". Powell's 6'9". I don't know. Oh, man, put Norman Powell right on his ass. Tough shot. But no, I like Josh Green's game a lot. I think he's really like methodical with his offensive game, which is really interesting to watch always, especially when people are more athletic. It's kind of cool when you can see them put both together. Man, look at him. He is just a menace though. And you need defenders on this Mavericks team, so good signing for Dallas. Next one we got here, Timberwolves giving Jaden McDaniels a 5-year, $136 million extension. Jaden McDaniels, for those of you that don't know, is a very, very good basketball player. And I know people don't always like to watch Minnesota basketball. Hopefully you're watching a little bit more because they have Anthony Edwards, but also you should be watching it because they have this kid right here. So I think the math works out that that's about $27 million a year, which seems like a lot, but this is a high quality starter player and potentially a defensive player of the year candidate. His perimeter defense is absolutely insane, and he accompanies that with an ever growing offensive game. As we can see, definitely another third-year jump, kind of similar to Josh Green. They were the same draft class. You're getting 12.1 points per game, which, when you think about it, right, I mean, that was a team that had D'Angelo Russell, had Anthony Edwards, had Karl Anthony Towns at points on the team last year. So you're the next scoring option. You're getting 12 points a game. That's really nice. Maybe you'll even see an uptick in that this year. I presume you will because you're probably the third scoring option at the very least. His effective field goal percentage is really nice at 59% there, and most importantly here, 40% three-point shooter around Anthony Edwards, was shooting 3.5 a game. They need as many floor spaces as they can get. I'd really like to see the Timberwolves with just like more dogs like this on the team. I'd be curious to see where Anthony Edwards could take a team like that. So obviously the Timberwolves are paying a lot of money to like their first 4 or 5 players, and a lot of them are bigs and wings. But Jaden McDaniels is one you had to re-sign. You had to get some young talent to actually stick around in Minnesota to accompany Ant. As far as his role with the team, I don't know what his ceiling is at the end of the day, because I don't really see him necessarily taking people off the dribble or anything like that, being a play initiator or anything. He doesn't really need to, though. His value comes on the defensive end, as I'm guessing we're going to see there. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of just what he does. He's a defensive stopper. He's a good athlete. He runs the floor, and again, he's just kind of a dog to have around Ant. I think the concern is going to be maybe a little bit of immaturity. We saw him punch that wall in frustration and ultimately took him out of the playoffs, which was kind of catastrophic for the Timberwolves. They only have so much depth on this team. I would say it really only runs about 6 players deep, if you want to even consider it that. But at the end of the day, I think this signing makes perfect sense, and I'm excited to see the continued growth of Mr. McDaniels. Had to see one more. Next one on the list, Aaron Nesmith, Culvers, get out of here, Midwestern Special Culvers there. So yeah, Aaron Nesmith getting a 3-year, $33 million extension with the Indiana Pacers. Now, Aaron Nesmith, I'm not going to lie, is a player that I have not watched a ton of. And for a while there, because he came into the league after being pretty injured, he was a killer at Vanderbilt when he was healthy. He was drafted towards the end of the first round, if I remember, by the Celtics. And he just kind of kept making it through the league, and he ended up with the Pacers. And I'm like, okay, this guy's just sliding around, and he's a sharpshooter. People are hoping they can kind of find that again. But last year, he really found his niche. I was reading here in the article that when he signed the extension, that the whole team was like cheering him on when he signed it. That alone tells you a lot that you need to know about Aaron Nesmith. Now, if you weren't a Pacers fan, these numbers might actually surprise you for him. 10 points a game, but I'm going to direct you to the games started here. He started 60 games for them last year. So $11 million a year for a guy that he's probably not going to start this year, but that played starter minutes. He's a younger guy to kind of fit in with Halliburton, Mathurin, Obi Toppin, right? Kind of that younger core that they've been building up there. And he provides a lot on the defensive end. That's where he was really impactful. I remember Rick Carlisle compared him to being like a soldier and everything. He's very out of the limelight. He makes a big defensive impact. And then not to mention the 4 3-pointers a game, shooting about 37%. You absolutely love to see that, especially around guys like Halliburton that are going to make their lives a lot easier by getting you good passes. I think this is a quality signing for Indiana, though. You're getting a sharpshooter. The jumper was a little bit slow on that one, which is kind of interesting. Normally, the sharpshooters have a lot quicker release than that. Let me see one more of these. But no, strong body, defensive minded, wing, right? Kind of a 2/3 probably. He's about 6'5", I'd say. So he doesn't look the same height as Josh Green. I think this deal though kind of exemplifies how much of a steal the Josh Green one is, because I think Josh Green is a much better player than Aaron Nesmith, and that's no hate on him or anything. But Josh Green only getting about $2 million more overall. I don't know. Seems like a steal to me. But yeah, excited for Nesmith to be kind of a part of this young core going forward, and hopefully he continues to be that defensive presence that they're going to need to continue to build up in Indiana. Next one we got here is the Magic giving Cole Anthony another 3 years, $39 million. So again, that works out to kind of the $13 million season, and I guess his comparison then is going to be Josh Green again. So that's what we're going to have to be comparing Cole Anthony to. Cole Anthony is on the list of many guards that the Orlando Magic have that are very solid basketball players that they've taken with high draft picks and don't really become anything elite, but are very solid. To be fair to Cole Anthony, his draft stock probably would have been a lot higher if he didn't tear his ACL when he was at, I believe it was UNC. Yeah, so he fell to like the 15th pick or something like that, and he's put up pretty steady numbers. You could probably argue that they're empty numbers, considering the Magic haven't really put together competent rosters for a little bit. We'll see this season between Paolo and Franz how good they are, but Anthony's nonetheless put up some numbers. Specifically on those numbers, we did see a little bit of a drop in points, but again, like I said, he's got competent players around him now, and good ones at that, and Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, so they just are going to take a lot of his shots away. He only played about 60 games last season. You would hope that that increases. I'm looking at this. He shot 36% from three. That's more than competent. You take that. The effective field goal percentage is maybe a little bit low, but it's not bad for a guard, in my opinion. He gets quite a bit of rebounds for a guy that's, I was going to say 6'3", 6'2". I'm apparently thinking people are a lot taller than they actually are today, but turnover numbers probably got to go down a little bit. He's got almost a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. It's not something I really love, but he's not really there to be a distributor at the end of the day. That's more of like a Fultz kind of thing for the team. At the end of the day, he's going to be a backup point guard that's making around $13 million as kind of just a scoring guard. So, I don't know. Might be a bit of an overpay, but hard to say. Again, his role is going to be that backup guard where he's just scoring. He's selling tickets to the ozone and stuff by doing stuff like that. He is incredibly athletic. I'm sure that the Magic's plan for him is to kind of be that spark plug 6-man type player, which I always like when it's a point guard, because they do just have the ball in their hands so much of the time. So I like the role that he can have on this team. I think they need to figure out kind of what they're doing with the rest of this guard rotation to maybe kind of help them out, because I don't know where like Suggs' potential goes at the end of the day. Fultz is definitely their starter, so if he's just going to be a scorer that comes off the bench for them and gets some buckets, it might be a bit of an overpay, because I don't think he's elite enough at it. He's not maybe an elite enough scorer to do it, but we've seen him put up 16 points a game in the NBA before at the end of the day. So all props to Mr. Anthony for getting his bag. Next one on the list, Denny Avdia. For those of you following the Wizards series, you should really go watch it, that we're doing here on the channel. It's good to see Denny go get his money. Another guy that's getting about $13 million that we'll compare to Josh Green. Denny was a really interesting player coming into the draft. There's not too many Israeli basketball players that come into the league, and he was a guy that, he's 6'9". He can handle the ball a little bit. He can shoot a little bit. He can defend a little bit. He does a lot of things well, right? And I think that's probably a good definition of his career so far. You look at the numbers last year, started 40 games last year, played in 76. You love to see that. The points haven't quite taken off yet, but given he's been playing with Bradley Beal, right? Kuzma was a scorer for them at points. Porzingis was a scorer for them at points. He hasn't been asked to do a lot of that. What he's been asked to do is be a facilitator. And you see that. You get solid assist numbers out of a 6'9" guy. The turnovers are a bit concerning, but, he's not on a great basketball team. Those numbers are going to be a little bit inflated in general. I think the concern comes from the fact that he hasn't quite developed this three-point shot yet. The attempts up are good, right? Like he's getting a good amount of shots up, but they're not converting at the rate we'd want to see. I think Denny definitely has a role in the NBA, right? Just being able to do things like that, right? It's nice to have more ball handlers on the court in multiple positions, but until he can be more of a scoring threat, which we'll see this year, right? There's plenty of shots to go around on the Washington Wizards this year. But until we see that scoring intake really go up, I don't know how I feel about this contract. You know, again, I'm comparing him to Josh Green, and Josh Green probably is underpaid a little bit, in my opinion. But I would like to see a little bit more out of him in the actual scoring side going forward. But another young guy, this is a rebuilding team at the end of the day. It's not a big deal that you gave him this contract, and he's definitely one you want to keep around long term. And yeah, that does it for the extensions. I don't think I missed anybody. If I did, y'all can let me know in the comments and tell me that I'm an idiot. I know I'm an idiot. But yeah, just wanted to talk some extensions with you. Happy to all these guys getting their bread. Always good to see. And hey, thanks so much for watching, you guys. Stay tuned for the next video coming out the day after. So leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know other things you want me to talk about, you want to see on the channel. And sending out some love as always. Thanks, y'all. Bye.